Luckily, man, amidst all this chaos, we can rely on the rock that is Diamond, right? And they're one distributor, right? So as long as, wait a second. We've got a whole new distribution universe happening, right? Because what better time to completely switch up the retailers' day-to-day operations and dramatically affect everything they're doing than right now in the midst of this chaos? Bill, you started alluding to this about leadership at all levels, not just the economic. Tell me a little bit about what you think is going on with DC's pull out of away from Diamond and this move to two new distributors and the chaos that's ensued.
Well, for almost 28 years, I was involved in those contract negotiations with the big publishers during the exclusive wars, during the exclusive time that Diamond was the dominant player. And the contracts were written, especially for the bigger guys, where the publishers controlled all marketing, all sales, all promotions. And Diamond was a distribution partner, a logistics partner. I don't think many people understand that, if DC didn't want to promote something, Diamond was not going to promote it on their own. Diamond was DC's spokesperson. Most people miss that subtly quite a bit. Same thing for Marvel, Dark Horse, and so on, for the larger 5 publishers. So when the changeover happened, I had no problem with DC leaving Diamond, quite honestly. It just should have been in an orderly fashion. Mm-hmm. We don't have, in this time of desperate need, we don't have wartime consigliaries, which is Paul Levitz and Bob Wayne. I mean, Paul might have said, I'm going to leave Diamond. I don't think he would have, but he might have said that. But he said, here's a 12-month plan to roll it out.
Yeah,
we're going to announce in June. In January 1st, then we're going to do the FOC changeover. And March, we're going to start shipping comics to the new guys. But they would have stayed with Diamond as well. That would be my gut take.
Yeah, no wartime consigliaries. We got a house full of Fredos over there, Bill. So what would it have looked like? What would an orderly transition have looked like in your eyes? That's what I want to understand.
It would have been a 9-month rollout, announced in advance.
Not a 9-hour rollout? What are you talking about?
Eric, did you want to get in there too? Did you have something to say?
To me, it begs the question. I agree with everything Bill said, but it begs the question, and then, so why did they do it this way? Why did they feel so compelled to feel there was such great urgency to do this at a time that to everybody else's eyes is clearly the worst possible time? Why?
It's time for the tinfoil hat. Let's go, guys. Why?
So again, I'm not privy to the current contract negotiations. So I'm 7 years removed, although I have friends at DC and I have friends at Diamond and blah, blah, blah. My take is that the changeover in executives lost the sensitivity and didn't understand the true nature of the Diamond contract. And there's power above DC Comics that says, why aren't you number one? We're Warner, we're AT&T, we're these 18 other corporations. And if your distributor's not doing it for you, find somebody else. The problem is that they found other people that are really good guys, but not equipped to handle that kind of volume change overnight.
Do you think it's a vote of confidence in the, or a lack thereof, in the format, the comic book format itself, the periodical format?
Well, I think it's a lack of understanding it at above DC about what happens in the direct market and comic book stores. I don't think that Jim Lee had a good listening voice. I think Paul Levitz knew who to call at Warner Brothers to discuss the subtleties of our industry. And I'm not sure Jim Lee, who's a tremendous talent and a consummate professional, had that same relationship with a higher up person where they would say, Paul, I'm going a different direction. But Paul goes, yeah, but you don't understand. There's a delicate balancing act here. We're on a tightrope. We're in a lead position. We have a lot of control what goes into the marketplace by our deal with Diamond Comics. We won't get that from anybody else. By leaving, the very nature is you're going to be giving back a ton of material you gained the rights for 28 years ago.
Yes.
And I don't know if Jim has that earpiece with the AT&T people to have that delicate conversation. And that's not a shot at Jim a lot because I have utmost respect. He's getting pounded right now, and probably because he's the figurehead, he gets the desserts and he gets the pounding when it happens.
Right.
But some of that's not fair to him. I think he got mandated out of it, and I think the DC employees are getting just their asses kicked big time. I mean, it's a horrendous scenario.
Adam, what do you think?
As nervous as I am about disagreeing with Bill on anything, frankly,
don't go there.
I think there is something to be said for valuing what the reasoning they gave, which is that, that a single point of contact, a single person, the owner of this company was the only person who decided to shut off the switch for everyone. And I'm not saying the way he did wasn't responsible. I mean, I personally believe it was incredibly responsible to kind of slow that flow. But in the end of the day, if I am somebody at AT&T, I think it would be a reasonable question to ask, why is this portion of our business being decided by a single person who does not work at this company? And I think that is worth valuing. I think that's worth respecting. Now,
that would make sense if they didn't just go to another company another two small companies that they gave. Like, why not keep working with Diamond?
Okay, so let's assume, again, Bill's not in the room, I'm not in the room, but let's assume for a minute that they did, right? So they did initially give it to two different companies that didn't split up, but now those two companies are technically competing. So at the moment, for the first time, you get a decision about who you're going to buy DC Comics from. What?
But there's
not geographically. They're not.
No, not even geographically. No, that's ended. That's over. You can decide as a retailer who you're going to buy from for the first time.
I heard that there isn't DCBS opening a facility that's on the East Coast or more easterly, actually.
Oh, wow.
You know what? Possibly. I mean, ECS and Loon are both, and I do choose to call them by those distributor names because they are different organizations within those organizations.
All right.
But they are both.
Sorry.
He's right. There are growing pains. Would it have been optimal had we had a 9-month rollout? Absolutely. But again, none of us was in that room. None of us knows who told who to sit down and shut up, right? And we don't know which side of the room that the conflict came from. Many of my best friends work at Diamond. I never want to say that they ended up, making this problem. But what I am saying is that I know that there are people on both sides of that conversation who value these stores and value this product. And I know that they're working night and day because I talk to them about trying to fix this, and that this is a huge issue that they are all working overtime to try and resolve. So I think that there's a certain level of respect you have to give to the reasoning that was given, and not just say they were looking to screw everybody over.
Well, just to jump in for a second,
they did screw everybody over.
I think they did, but I think Jeppy mentioned early on that DC had renegotiated their contract a year or two back with an out clause. This was not a 1 week decision. I think it had nothing to do with Diamond shutting down. I think it was irrelevant. I think that was a byproduct of DC had made a decision, and they decided that was a line in the sand, and it coincidentally lined up with Diamond shutting down. I actually don't think that Diamond shutting down played a role in that final decision, personally.
I think it's more likely, to my mind, I think it's more likely that they saw this as a perceived weakness in their flow, and that they gave themselves an out. And when the time comes that they needed the out, they used that option. That's
what timing, though? What timing? To me, that's you cannot ignore the choice to do it when they did it. It seems like a blunt tool, a negotiating tool, but I agree. I'm going to parse the Adam tea leaves and say what you're saying is that maybe Diamond decided to play hardball and say, hey, man, we haven't had new terms for a long time. You're going to have to pay a lot more now to use us. And DC just flat out decided to say,
I can add a little flavor to that, actually.
I don't want to dominate the conversation, but historically, if you look at Diamond, when Marvel left to go to Heroes, when we bought Heroes World, if you read the statement from Steve Jeppy that next day, he said something to the effect of, my exact quote, I'm really sad to see Diamond go. Our doors are always open. Right. Always open.
Very true. And he said something similar this time as well.
And I can't imagine Steve Jeppy ever saying, we don't want to deal with DC. This is not, This is not his material being. Now,
I agree.
There can be disagreements, but his very nature is he is a team builder, not a team destroyer.
Okay.
And the power relationship prior to the exclusive wars, for those that don't know, was always in the distributorship, never at the publisher. So pre-exclusives, for instance, Diamond had previews, Capital City had Advanced Comics, and so on. We would ask for the publishers for what's their big project coming up 3 or 4 months from now, and they would say this, this, and this, and this. And I say, well, we would say to DC, I would say, since I was the person in charge of that function, I'd say, yeah, we'd like to have a Frank Miller previews cover, and they get Frank Miller to draw a cover, and I would say it's not very good. Can he redraw it? Because it wasn't very good. It was a piece of promotional artwork they were trying to repurpose in the catalog cover.
Right.
I didn't want a second piece of artwork. I want something fresh. When the day after that deal closed and DC was exclusive with Diamond, we understood immediately the power went 180. Diamond's power went from 100% control to now yes sir, no sir. I mean,
right.
I mean, not with the Fantagraphics. There's still power there.
He still pushes you around, Eric.
Well, I mean, we always love Fantagraphics, but there's a different relationship.
No, Bill's right. I mean in the infamous Levitt's memo that
right.
I leaked in the journal, that was basically the selling point from Levitt's to his higher ups at Warner's was that it was going to give them leverage that they didn't have as over the distributor.
And they just give it all back, and they gave all the leverage just back right now. The leverage
right. That's
right, and that's exactly right. And they were so Levitt's is selling that to Warner's as an advantage, and you're exactly right. And now they've just thrown that away. I mean, theoretically, maybe they're gaining it with these other distributors, but it seems so much like Heroes World in that it's been so haphazard and short-sighted that it's destined to fail. I could be wrong.
Brandon, I want you to. We need to wrap this topic up, but Brandon, I want you to tell me. You're a retailer in Canada. There's been a lot of talk about major problems from the new distribution as far as duties and fees and shipping. Just tell us your experience, please, with the new distribution setup.
I've managed to get away with paying no duties at all, and that's through a lot of self-digging and realizing that there's actually a third option available in Canada. Now it is currently through UCS, more or less, but there's an outfit up here called Universal, and they've had a sub-distribution deal with Diamond for a long time. And they're located where the Diamond drop-off point essentially is. So they've been distributing to gaming stores mostly using Diamond terms. And they talked with DC and UCS and got essentially a short-term deal approved with all parties involved to do some distribution in Canada. Now, not a lot of people know about it, but UCS takes care of all the duty. We're just paying for the shipping. The only hitch really for me is that it is through UCS. So this week, because it was a holiday Monday in Canada, I'm going to see my DC stuff on Wednesday. Now, if DC shipped the stuff out where they got it printed in Quebec, as in DCS still says, it would go to Montreal in Quebec and then come to us. So I've been pushing them on that one.
So, I mean, Bill, I know you said, Steve Jeppy said the door will always be open. True, it's open, but what will the cover charge be? That's really the question.
Well, here's a good example of that, by the way. If Steve was truly vindictive or truly, really, I mean, he's upset for sure. There's no doubt. But if he was truly upset, he would have cut off discount in Midtown for everything else. He would have slammed the door. He would have slammed the door, and they both would have gone out of business overnight. And that would have been as big of a tsunami as this change is. So it's not within his. I'm not a Steve Jeppy, apostle guy. I'm not saying he's the best guy in the world, but he's very consistent in his viewpoints.
And so mutually assured destruction, though.
That's right. There's no reason, but he wouldn't do that. He would. So I think his viewpoint is, I can't speak for him, but when I shared an office for 2 years. He sat right next to me for 2 years. That's a lot of Steve Jeffy, by the way. That's a whole lot of Steve Jeffy. Most of the time he's on the floor, page counting Golden Age comics, by the way.
That doesn't surprise me.
I just view him as a long-term player, and that door isn't artificially open, it's absolutely open for DC. He would love to have him back tomorrow at some volume, and not being there, I can't see a vision of why that's not happening at some level. Even if Diamond's the third choice, having the books in the same box everyone else's boxes will reduce overall freight costs, just point blank.
Well, Brandon, didn't you have I know we got to move on from this topic, but didn't you have some idea about why DC isn't at Diamond now?
Yeah. Well, and take this all with like a huge box of salt, because I was talking with some folks at DC, and their version of the events is they had that 1 month extension for their current contract that Diamond granted. They asked for a further month-long extension, which Diamond actually stopped negotiating past at a certain point, and basically said, this is the deal you're going to take, or, have fun. Now, that's what I've been told. But you all work with publishing stuff. I have not.
That lines up so well with my theories of just what I thought happened. That sounds so realistic to me, but I can't speak to the truth.
Well, and let's be truly honest. Before they made these other distributors as part of their companies, Midtown and Discount Comic Book Service were number 2 and number 3 comic book distributors for America. Right. They are, according to those leaked Marvel numbers, 20% of the market, 10% of the market, some ridiculous number. And that makes them de facto 2 and 3 distributors. So I understand also why they chose those as the distributors, because they're the next largest ones available.
And I have nothing to say negative about either one of the companies. Nothing.
Yeah. But I think that's also why, realistically, Diamond would never cut them off. They couldn't sustain that kind of volume hit on top of the loss of DC. It just doesn't seem realistic to me.
Can I add one more thought to this before we move on? And I apologize for not having this earlier.
Okay, I run this show, so there's no timers here. We do what we want.
It's fine. So I think one of the things that we should talk about too is that during this pandemic, in a way, DC, if it's true that they really were just mostly concerned about their product chain, then in a way that they've been right, because the 2 people that they went with are hiring in full-time staff. They're training that full-time staff, and they are consistently shipping out. Now, granted, there is some growing pains, and they're learning to ship out during periods where there are holidays and what have you. But they are consistent about this, and will continue to grow in that consistency. Whereas Diamond has a warehouse in Olive Branch, Mississippi, where they are, as far as I can tell, mostly dependent upon hourly temp workers. And those hourly temp workers it's hard to get to come into work when they're getting an additional $600 in their unemployment check. Uh-oh. So as a result of COVID, in some ways, DC was right in that they do have having other outlets, they are getting their product out a bit more consistently. Now, I should say, none of this has really disrupted Diamond's flow and getting new product out. It has only really impacted back orders and those sorts of things. And they are doing an incredible job. Those guys are all working night and day too. But I am saying that some of this has borne out as it has played out.
And I want to try to telescope this up to the mega level for a minute too. I think Bill is absolutely right about, what part does AT&T play in all of this? I mean, I don't think AT&T is sitting, John Stankey is sitting there and saying damn, I wonder if Midtown or DCBS is better at distributing, Aquaman. However, I complain about this all the time on my other podcasts. I have a Roku. Where's my HBO Max? AT&T, this is our big thing. Everybody's at home. Everybody's desperate. Look at Disney Plus is the one bright spot in the entertainment world right now, right? And Netflix. they launched their big thing. I can't get it on my Roku. You can't get it on your Amazon Fire Stick because at the last minute, Amazon Roku said, you know, hey, we're going to play hardball. It's 2 months later, almost 3 months later, I have no HBO, you know, Max in my house.
It's exclusivity wars for sure. There's a hunt for eyeballs. There is a total parallel.
Well, and you're
it's bad negotiation, though. It's bad negotiation.
And you're in the biggest market in the country.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like Roku and Amazon Fire Stick are the two most popular streaming methods.
Right.